Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Travel Alert. I'm Steve Glenn.
I'm Paul Glenn.
Hey, Paul, today we are doing the annual Steve's Ultimate Travel Tipping Guide.
All right.
Everybody asks me, do they ever ask you how much
They
to
do.
tip?
Yep.
So we put this together every year, and we take it out to our Weekly Travel Alert of Executive Travel. You can visit our website at executivetravel.com. And we've listed this on the Weekly Travel Alert that goes out to 100,000 people every Tuesday at 10:30.
Okay.
And so this should be cycling around the world as we speak.
There we go.
I started off with restaurants and dining because that's probably what most people think
Most
of when
standard.
they do tipping.
Yep.
And I would say right off the bat, you've got to realize tipping in the U.S. is different than tipping in Europe,
Very different.
tipping in Asia, all over the world. So you have to think of where you are. We're going to basically talk about tipping in the United States first,
Sure.
okay? I started with the restaurant wait staff. This is probably the most common area. I put 15 to 25%. Paul, what do you do usually when you tip?
I tend to do the 20%. So I go right in the middle. Depends on what the service is. My biggest measure on that is if my glass of water is ever empty, then that's when they've started missing the boat for me.
Well, and I think what you're stating there is tipping ought to be a reflection on the service provided.
It is.
Not just the fact that somebody is there in your face. Because I've had pretty lousy service and I've had great service. What was the biggest tip you've ever done?
Oh, I've got to say on some of the group movements we've had, probably it's 5,000, 6,000, 7,000.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
You're a big monkey muck,
Well,
huh?
some big bills.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Europe, they don't even expect a tick. But I usually feel that I got to give them 10%. What do you do?
I usually just leave some extra cash.
Okay.
Because one of the things there is a lot of times there's not a section on the credit card receipt to even leave a tip.
Right.
So you tend to have to carry some cash with you if you're going to do something along those lines over there. Or you have to tell them up front, and then they will add that amount of the tip to what they're going to charge your credit card for. But then that usually causes for confusion because they don't have any way then to show the manager or whoever what that amount was supposed to be.
Now, I wrote down the next one, Paul, the buffet staff. Most people will say, buffet, I ain't going to tip anything. But realistically, you still have somebody cleaning up the plates, keeping the buffet clean. You know what I put down? Put $2 to $5 a person of the number of people sitting at your table. Mm-hmm. And that's probably a good reflection on people just cleaning up and making things healthy and clean.
They definitely have an impact on your experience. If the table next to you isn't getting cleaned up right away, then that has a negative impact. So there's definitely something to that.
The next one I put down is the bartender. And once again, most people do a pretty good job tipping the bartender. A lot of time they do it with the extra change that's left over for a drink. So, for example, if a drink is $7 and you put $10 down, they usually just leave the $3, right?
Yep.
But usually I put $2 to $3 a drink. Is that something that's in your well house?
I tend to go back to the percentage.
Okay.
A lot of times if I'm going to have a drink and I'm out, I'm usually at a restaurant. So I'm probably tying it into the food that's going with it. So going along the same lines, I just tend to do that same percentage for the drinks.
Now, this one's for you, not for me. How about the cigar or the hookah lounge attendant? I wrote down people recommend $3 to $5 per setup as they assist in the lighting and the maintenance of your experience. Do you do any tipping in a cigar lounge?
Only if it ties to a drink. So
Okay.
I've never done it. The local cigar lounges here, you tend to go in, and especially if I bring my own cigar instead of buying one from them, then I'll make sure to buy a drink and give them a tip based off of that. Now, that being said, there was a time where, due to a situation, they took the group that I was with and gave everybody a complimentary round of drinks. Yeah. And so I gave a pretty significant tip for that situation.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that most people that work in hotels and bars and everything, they need your tips. Mm-hmm. They want to work hard for your tips. And so if they're working hard, please consider tipping generously if you can. Next, I had, Paul, hotels and accommodations. And I'm the biggest sinner here because oftentimes I forget to tip the hotel staff. And I recommend $5 to $10 per night left daily. And that's the other thing. Leave it daily so they know this person's tipping. And they do work really hard to make sure your room's really clean.
And I was in Kentucky a couple weeks back, and I did leave some money on the counter. I think there's a challenge with this because I think not all housekeepers are willing to take that. They don't know that it's theirs.
It's a tip, yeah.
So they're wondering if you just left it. So I actually had left money on the counter the first day, because a lot of times then they'll make it a little extra cleaner for you, which I always appreciate.
Yeah.
But it was still sitting there when I got back. So,
oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, I think there's something, maybe you need to take a Post-it pad and leave a little note on it.
You.
Yeah, thank you for keeping my room clean.
Yeah, folks, can you imagine what it takes to clean a hotel room and what gets left behind, and how we need to probably move this one up the tipping metric this year in 2025, because I can't imagine what people leave in hotel rooms. I probably don't want to know.
Probably don't want to know.
No, probably don't want to know. Okay, I had the bellhop and the bell captain. This one is always a little confusing to me. I put $2 to $5 per bag. I usually do about $2. How about you?
I'm about the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Usually $2 a bag.
So here's the problem. You pull up, and let's say you're in an Uber, right? And they get the bags out of the Uber and they put it on a cart.
It's a different guy every time.
Yeah.
You got 3 guys
That's
before
one
you
guy.
get to the room.
So you tip that guy, and then he takes it in,
You
and
get
then
to the check-in, then somebody else takes you to
the
a
bell
room.
captain, right? You get checked in, the bell captain takes you in, and he may just welcome you, and then you go up to your room, and somebody else comes up with the luggage. You may have 2 or 3 tips on the way.
What I've found with this one is, you get the guy that gets you to your room, especially if you're in a nicer hotel in a big city, and you give them a healthy tip, then they can become one of your greatest resources for the things to do, the local restaurants, bars, or if you have any special interests. So, there's something to not just the tip, but then utilizing that person as a resource.
I usually, if the hotel concierge goes that extra length, finds me a Broadway
sports tickets, Broadway tickets, anything like that.
Great restaurant that's sold out. It goes that extra mile, $20, $40, $50. If they're working hard, I want to reward them and let them know that's appreciated.
If they're using a network that they've got that would get you something that you wouldn't be able to access without them, then there's a tremendous value to that.
You bet. Valet parking is the next thing at a hotel. I put $3 to $7 per retrieval. Reality is I usually have a $5 bill or a $10 bill. But as you can imagine, you can spend a lot on tipping.
You can.
And the other thing I found is a lot of times I don't have that $5 or the $10. I have $20 bills. I use my credit card, and it's just not easy to credit card pay on these things. The hotel doorman, I do $3 to $5 if they hail a cab or something like that. That's the hotel side.
Okay.
Now, we're going to talk about transportation services. We're talking today about tipping, Steve's ultimate guide to travel tipping. Here we go, transportation services, cab and rideshare drivers. This is basically Uber, Lyft, taxis, 10 to 20%. Is that what you do?
I do stateside. When you get to Europe, it doesn't give you that ability. It goes to like €2, €5, €10, depending upon what you have. So it's a much smaller tip, yes.
Okay, the shuttle driver from the airport, I usually do $1 to $3 a bag.
Okay.
Is that about what
Yep,
you're at?
that makes sense.
Okay, airport or train porter, $2 to $5 a bag, especially if they handle those heavy, big hunking bags that some people take. I don't take those.
I was going to say that's what I rarely use.
I usually do all that stuff by myself, so I don't. But there might be people that want some help with that. Tour bus drivers. This is a lot of the people that are on our tours that do Women of the Midwest tours and other tours. $2 to $5 per day per person. So, if you're on a 10-day tour, that's $50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tour guides. Now, this is, if you're on a tour again, $5 to $20 a day. Might be a nice short 2-day tour. You could slip them $20 or $40 if they're really great. If you're on a 10-dayer and they're average, you might do $50 for that 10-dayer. So anyway, that's tours, that's transportation. The rest of them, I came up with some other ones that aren't normally thought of. Here's my favorite, #Snurdly, shoeshine attendant. Man, I love to get my shoeshine. I love to do it in Denver.
Denver Airport.
Denver's my favorite in the world.
Yep.
And you know what they do there, Paul? I ask them, what do I owe you? And what do they tell you?
Whatever you think it was worth.
Isn't that the greatest?
There is no price. They do it based on, and they do an amazing job. So
it makes you want to give them more.
I don't know what the value would be, but it's $20 every time I go.
I'm slipping them a straight 20.
I mean, they're lighting my boots on fire and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So it's an
like
experience.
Fireworks. Fireworks in Denver at the shoeshine guy. Spa and salon services, I had 15 to 25% of the service charge, and you can do those in airports. You can do them in the big fancy spas at the Ritz-Carltons, and some of those things are $200 or $300 for a service. And if you add 25 on top of it, wow,
$75 tip.
Yeah, you're gonna.
If you're getting a world-class masseuse or something to take care of that, then $75 is not. If you're staying at the Ritz-Carlton that's got that spa, the $75 is probably not a big deal.
No, I've never done this next one, Paul.
Okay.
Makeup artist or personal stylist. I don't go into that atmosphere, okay? I wrote it down 15 to 25%. And what's your stylist?
Do you tip your guy that cuts your hair?
Yeah.
So that'd be right on those lines.
I don't even call them a stylist. I go, Haircut Harry.
We all appreciate when he does make you look better, though.
How about personal drivers and chauffeurs? I put 15 to 20%.
Yep.
Most of this is pretty common sense, ladies and gentlemen. Now we've got, how about private yachts and boat crew? I put 10 to 20% on those.
And same with private jet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those things.
Well, I don't go on those, but you do.
I do.
Yeah, okay, private jet. And then golf caddies. What do you do for a golf caddy, Snurdly?
It's usually like an hour thing. It's usually about $100 for the round.
You give them $100? Whoa.
High roller.
You don't do it often, and the places you're at, require it. You're looking at about $25 an hour, and they're carrying your clubs.
I'm in Pinehurst Park. It's a lot cheaper than that.
So #Snurdly says $100 a round. I put 25 to 50 per round, depending on the experience and the effort. I think the effort.
But Ryan goes to the world-class courses.
Yeah,
too. So
he's going to
his
some nice
point
places.
is, he's not going to the local city course.
And then I had the wheelchair attendants at airports.
That's one that I was going to ask, because that's one that I think often gets overlooked. I think you see a lot of people that they're getting taken care of. That's a tremendous service.
Oh, and I put 5 to $20, but I think it should be $20.
I would say $20 would be, I mean,
when I'm coming from Asia, sometimes there's 25 wheelchairs lined up in the jet bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many people that use that now.
Yep. No, that's definitely one that I think gets overlooked too much. So.
And finally, don't forget to tip your friendly weekly travel alert rider. Okay? Most people forget that. Not here. I'm Steve Glenn with Executive Travel.
Please like, subscribe, share, and add any comments or feedbacks on topics that would be of interest for future episodes. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.